one of the things I'd love to ask you, because I've done previous film guests, I've had director Alex Porras, I've
Sure.
had a writer Guinevere Turner. She wrote American Psycho. So the question I've always wanted to ask people like you and those two is, in regards to Die Hard, what's it like having your name linked to a film that's considered by so many to be one of the greatest ever?
No, it's very flattering, and I guess it'll be on my tombstone, at this point.
Do you think, and this is probably just me reading too much into it, but do you think that Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber had as much to do with the popularity of Die Hard as Bruce Willis?
Oh,
Because,
absolutely, absolutely. A protagonist, a hero is judged. The yardstick you judge a hero by is his adversary. The greater the villain, the greater the hero. I'll give you an example. Another one of my movies, where not I, but a subsequent writer, with a gun to his head, held in the hand of the star, made the villains in Hudson Hawk completely silly. Completely silly. And I believe that one of the reasons that movie failed, probably the principal movie that failed when it first came out, is the villains were so silly, you never really worried that they were a threat, and there was no doubt that the hero would prevail.
yeah,
Now, and I know it's a comedy, but even Disney movies are all comedies, right? Let's take a movie like Aladdin, the animated Aladdin. There's talking fucking animals. There's the bird. There's the Gilbert Gottfried's the bird. He says, Jafar, they're on to us. We got to get out of town. They're quiet. Quiet, you cowardly chicken. Soon all Arabia will be under my control once I marry the princess. He's serious. Scar in The Lion King, who's the villain, who plays Hans Gruber's brother later, right? He's deadly serious. It's a critical, fatal mistake to have a silly cartoon villain. Now, Alan Rickman is quite funny in Die Hard. He's quite funny. He gets big laughs, but he's scary and serious.
in my opinion, 'cause I was talking about this the other day in the pub, is that for me, that if you don't get Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber, then you don't get Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, because even though one's a villain, one's a hero, they've still got that sort of, I like your shirt, I had to throw myself. And it's like, it's the same character.
Yeah, well, I would amend your theory there. It's well known that when we went to make Die Hard is as many people know is a sequel to a picture that was made with Frank Sinatra called The Detective. The same author wrote these two books. One about an old middle-aged cop, and then the second book he was retired. So Sinatra, who was already in his 40s, played the John McClane character in the movie The Detective, and his estranged wife was played by Faye Dunaway, who at that time is cancer, which is why she's dead in the second book.
Yeah.
So contractually, 20th Century Fox had to offer the part to Sinatra, initially. And fortunately, he said, "I'm too old and too rich, to take this picture," which is good because the chases in the building would have been on rascal scooters, taking the part. But then they went to the obvious suspects. They went to Stallone, they went to Schwarzenegger, they went to Richard Gere, they went to James Caan, who I know I'm friendly with. He regrets to this day he said no. The director, the producer, Larry Gordon, had a long-standing relationship with Burt Reynolds. He went to Burt Reynolds. They went to everybody in Hollywood, right? And then in desperation, because the movie had a release date, they went to Bruce Willis. And then, of course, knowing that they had exhausted every other possibility, Bruce Willis's agents asked for an astronomical price, which they got. It was $5 million, which was, and I know that's the thing today, but believe me, $5 million was a lot of money, and especially for someone who was not considered a movie star. He's a television star. He had two movies prior that had failed. So the next day, Richard Dreyfuss fired his agent. He said, "I don't get $5 million, and I have an Academy Award. You're fired." So it made everybody's price, all the stars, the prices went up as a result of that. But what happened was, what made that, and the reason they all turned the part down, by the way, is you got to put it in context. at this time, this is 1988. At this time, after a lot of movies, and I'm a culprit here, with Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Van Damme, and then you had Chuck Norris and Dolph Lundgren. You had these giant, oak-like muscle men as the heroes, and Bruce is just a normal-looking guy, right? Mm. And so with these kind of heroes, Stallone in Rambo, the commies, it's always commies in those days before the Berlin Wall. We're going to be back to commies again, I think. But it was always commies. The commies grab Stallone in Rambo, and they tie him to the bed springs of a mattress. Remember, that's all the ticking, all the fabric is out. It's just the giant springs. And then they put electrodes on his gonads, right? And they're beating him with clubs, and they're giving him electric shocks. He breaks free. He kills everybody in the room. Then he goes over and he grabs the microphone because he knows the main bad guy is elsewhere. And he says, "I'm coming after you next." Now, this is the complete opposite of Bruce Willis hearing gunshots, looking out the door of the bathroom, and seeing a dozen Germans come in with, battlefield weapons. And he looks at them, he looks at his pistol, and he runs upstairs to try and, find a phone. This is before everybody had telephone. So that is the point on the script, in my opinion, that every actor said, "Fuck this. This guy's a pussy." I really think that because it was so contrary to what had been established the previous decade. But the proof that was the moment came from my young son. At this time, my children, I had small children, they had seen my TV shows, but they'd never seen my movies because they were all R-rated.
Yeah.
So finally I said, all right, he's 11, he can probably handle this. And what I would show them is after we'd finish a movie like Commando, we'd have to make a version for television and airlines where you take out the cursing. Like Yippee-Ki-Yay, Melon Farmer, that kind of thing, right? You know that. Right, you know what I'm talking about. Right, so they had only seen my movies on a VHS tape. They didn't see it in the movie theater, where it was, less gruesome. So at this moment, when Bruce Willis looks outside, looks at his gut, and runs upstairs, my 11-year-old son grabs my arm and says, "Dad, your hero's chicken shit." So I go, "Where did you learn that word? Not from my movies."
The first time I ever seen Die Hard, it was shown here at 7:00 in the afternoon, and anything adult was censored out, and it was 50 minutes long. And I remember saying to my mum, "This is awful. What is this?" So she went and rented me out the video for it, and I was just like, "Holy fuck, I'm changed!"